Hello and welcome to the Husband Help Haven podcast, where you'll learn how to be the best husband you can be no matter what your marriage is like right now. This is your host, Stephen Waldo, and today we're going to talk about the friend zone. Specifically, how does it apply to separation? Does it apply to separation at all? And what should you do about it if you're in it? I get a lot of questions from guys that goes along the lines of something like this. Stephen, my wife and I, we get along great. In fact, some people can't even tell that we're separated when they see us out in public. And yet my wife has no attraction for me. She says she doesn't love me. She feels no sexual, physical, romantic attraction for me. And I think I'm stuck in her friend zone. Like, we get along so well, what could possibly be the problem? I must be stuck in her friend zone. The first situation where I see this sort of separation come up is when it's very early in the separation and it's a fairly small separation to begin with, or a fairly rather minor separation to begin with. There's not a bunch of really heavy hitting feelings or anything like that. It wasn't a big explosive fight. Fairly soft. She just isn't happy. She wants out. She's thinking about leaving. She's thinking about moving out. But in the meantime, a lot of your daily life stays the same. You still get along great. You talk, you're friendly. You have some of your same sort of couple routines. Maybe you still watch TV together at nighttime. You still have family dinners together. You still do stuff together on the weekends. And so it's like you're interacting almost as if you're still a couple, but then there's just still this separation that's underneath the surface. She's not happy, and she reaffirms that fairly frequently. I love you. I think you're a great father. I like spending time with you, but I'm not romantically interested in you, and I don't think I ever will be. That's often the sentiment you'll hear there. The other situation where this comes up is when it's after she's moved out, but you still text a lot. Again, fairly soft separation, and you still genuinely have preserved a pretty good friendship with your wife. You still have pretty frequent contact. In fact, you might spend most days kind of texting back and forth, just kind of this casual, meaningless banter back and forth, because that's what you used to do, and she seems to like it. She seems to enjoy it. She texts you kind of with, little memes or emojis or, hey, how are you doing, or stuff like that. And so you do the same. You just kind of match that, and that's fine. But again, it's this situation where it seems like you get along well, so there's not a lot of room to improve how well you're getting along, because you already get along pretty well. And so then it feels like, again, you're just kind of stuck in this friend zone. That's the term that comes up a lot in these situations. The common theme in both of these is that you have one of those I love you but I'm not in love with you type separations, where the wife is genuinely interested in some friendship. During the separation, she might even come out and tell you, hey, I want to stay friends after the divorce. I still hope that we can stay friends. You're my best friend. I just, I don't want you to be my husband anymore. So the question is here, is this being stuck in the friend zone? Does that term apply to this situation? Now, for my students, certainly, and even for some of you who are not my students, but you've kind of read through most of the material on Husband Help Haven, you'll recall that I actually have a Q&A blog post from a couple years back where a guy had a very similar question to this, and I walked him through it. And I say in that article, I will link that in the show notes for this episode, which will be at husbandhelphaven.com/friendzone during separation, with a hyphen between each word. Anyway, I say in that article, I'm not a huge fan of the friend zone term, idea, concept, period. I generally don't particularly put too much weight on these sort of cultural concepts that come up. And, friend zone, that term originated in an episode of Friends. It's not like a scientific term or anything like that, obviously. And I know that anecdotally, a lot of men experience, especially when they're dating before marriage, this idea of the friend zone. And we're going to talk more about that in a second. But I think that really my main sort of beef with the friend zone term is not whether it exists or not, but really that I think it wrongly describes the problem. Because men hear this term, and this is true for separated men and men who are in that sort of courtship phase, but we're talking about separation today, so we'll stay kind of focused on that. Men hear this term, the friend zone, and they believe that the problem is that they have a friendship with their wife. And that could not be further from the truth. That is not the problem here. Having a strong friendship with your wife, or with a woman that you're interested in, that's a good thing, in my view. And preserving that friendship during separation is a good thing too. If you can preserve a good relationship with your wife on any metric, on any front, that's good. We will take that because that's going to give you more opportunities to connect with her, to build connection, to have good moments together, to build new memories together that can potentially revive your marriage. So again, I know that there's other complications that go on in there, and it's not that it's always the right thing to pursue a friendship with your wife during separation. I know that there's other stuff, and I'm not going to say that that's what every single man in every single separation should do, but I'm just saying that generally during separation, if you can preserve a friendship with your wife, that's not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. Okay, if the problem isn't the friendship, then what is it? Well, so let's just take a look at a little hypothetical situation here that I think pretty accurately describes what most men think of when they think of the friend zone. A guy likes a girl, all right? And this guy finally works up the nerve one day after a few months of kind of getting to know her. Hey, do you want to go on a date? He asks her out. The girl is not attracted to him, doesn't like him that way, so she tells him, because she doesn't want to hurt his feelings, no, I like being friends with you too much. I don't want to let go of our friendship, so I don't want to go on a date. That would mess things up. So the guy says, that's okay. You know, I'm good friends with you too, so we can keep staying friends, and that's fine. The guy, of course, hasn't changed how he feels, and the girl hasn't changed how he feels. It's just that he's kind of being content with friendship, with the hope that pursuing that friendship further will one day open the door to a romantic relationship, right? So he keeps the friendship, but he continues to subtly court her over time. Now this guy, as his repeated attempts to subtly court this girl fail, will inevitably say or believe that he's stuck in the friend zone. He'll think, I got to be too good of friends with this girl. That's the problem. Therefore, the friendship is the problem. But what's the real problem here? Is it the friendship? Is the friendship the problem? No, not in my view. In my view, the problem here in this situation that I think that we can all agree kind of describes the stereotypical stuck in the friend zone situation, is very simple. The girl knows that he is more attracted to her than she is to him. Therefore, she not only sees his true motive in how he's treating her, she pities him for it. So there's a few different factors that I really want you to pay attention to. For one, there is the base level, the real mismatched level of attraction. Your wife, on some level, has an awareness of how much you want her versus how much she wants you. And at some level, she knows that your want for her is high and her want for you right now is low. The bigger the difference between those wants and the more aware she is of it, the less likely you are to build attraction. Why? Because she's going to, since she knows that you like her a heck of a lot more than she likes you right now in that way, right? She's going to be looking to apply that motive to all of the positive moments that you have together as to why you're doing them. So kind of going back to our hypothetical example, when that guy continues to be constantly available, to continue to constantly text this girl, always laughing, always willing to hang out, always willing to spend time together, and just kind of really makes himself endlessly available to her, she knows that the reason for his unending availability is not because they're that good of friends. She knows on some level that it's because he's trying to change how she feels about him. And so she might take that, she might enjoy that time together, she might continue to allow the friendship to go the way that she wants it to, but the whole while she's going to be thinking, I think he still likes me. I think he still likes me. And she's going to be reminded of that, and it's also going to remind her that she doesn't like him, right? So the problem is not only that there's a mismatched level of attraction, it's that she is very aware of it, okay? So really, when we're talking about the friend zone, in my view, the threshold where you've entered the friend zone is the point where she knows that you want her and also knows that she doesn't want you, right? It's really all about awareness. The solution here is not to take the friendship out of the equation. At least not entirely, certainly not entirely. What you really want to do to reverse this is, well, there's a few things that you can do. You can try to decrease her awareness of how much you want her, right? You can try to make her less aware of just how much you want her. And you can also try to make her question her belief that she doesn't want you. Pique a little curiosity. Make her second guess herself. Now, obviously, both of these things are easier said than done. So let's try to break this down into some practical terms. What can you actually do if you find yourself in this sort of situation with your wife? She says that she wants out, but you still have a lot of communication and a very strong friendship. What can you do to try and build up a little bit of extra attraction with her? Now, before we get into this, let me just say, everybody's situation is different. Use your own judgment. These are just some ideas that I've seen other guys use, that I've seen work well in other men's separations, but you're not other men. You're you. And to be frank, when I have a guy who may be a little bit too available to his wife, and they do have really strong communication and a good friendship, sometimes the right answer there is just to leave it alone and keep doing it. Because the reality is that the wife in that situation is comfortable most of the time. She doesn't feel an urgency because she knows that she has both options still open. So she's content to wait. And if you think that the number one thing that you need in your separation more than anything else is time, well, then it may be that you decide, you know what? I'm fine being stuck in the friend zone if that is what it is that I'm stuck in. I'm fine with my wife knowing that I want her more than she wants me because she's still here. She's content staying at home. She's content talking to me. We have a lot of time together, and I believe that it's more likely that through that I'll be able to sway how she feels about me than if I tried to change that and make her question that whole friend zone, or make her question her belief that I'm so much more attracted to her than she is to me, and that that's never going to change, right? But let's assume that you are interested in doing something about this mismatched attraction and her awareness of it. Well, one thing that you can do to start with is to just really ask yourself, does your wife believe that you are still friends with her because you're trying to win her back? Or does she believe that it's because you really do just share an equal friendship with each other that has endured into separation? If it's the former, if you think that your wife thinks that you are only friends with her still because you're trying to change her mind, what can you do to change that? Just ask yourself, is there anything that you are doing that's causing her to think that way? Where does she get that idea? Where do you think she most often is reminded of that mismatched attraction? That potential ulterior motive she might think you have. Because you can still remain consistent in saying that you want to save the marriage without allowing that to be the ulterior motive for every interaction that you have with your wife. There is a way to do that. Letting her go, the let her go mindset, that's the first step. But just asking yourself that question of, what is my wife's perception of me and of our, different desires for the other? What is her perception of that? And where does she get that perception from? That's the first thing. Just a general rule is if you find that you are constantly waiting on your wife, you always text her back pretty quick. You always answer her phone call, no matter the time. You always go out of your way for her, and you're just kind of waiting on her all the time. Well, maybe what you can do is just be a little busier, Be a little busier sometimes, as you normally and naturally would if you weren't going through separation and trying to change how your wife thinks about you, right? If you were just normally married, there would be times with your wife where you wouldn't text her back right away. You wouldn't answer her call. Instead, you tell her, oh, sorry, I'm busy right now. I'll call you back later. That would be a fine thing to do. And that's what normal friends do with each other, right? And that's not a problem. So if you think that you're too available for your wife to the point that there is literally never a time that you are unavailable for her, well, maybe that's something that you can draw a small little boundary around, just letting yourself be a little bit less available. Another thing that you can do is refrain from promising to stay friends with your wife post-divorce. And in fact, I know that a good chunk of men going through separation run into this. Don't let yourself be pressured into promising that you will be friends with your wife after divorce. Because ultimately, you have to recognize that just like you have some ulterior motives with friendship, it's not like she's just having a genuine friendship with you too. A lot of times there's some ulterior motives on her part too. Specifically, for her, maintaining a friendship with you limits the emotional cost of divorce for her, because she gets to have her cake and eat it too. She gets to get out of the marriage, gain the freedom of divorce, but not hurt you that bad, not feel too bad, right? So, okay, then you can respond to that, and really, this is the truth. This is probably just what you should do. Period. Is just be honest and tell her, look, I am friends with you right now. I like being friends with you right now, but I don't know how I will feel after divorce. And so I don't want to promise that I'm going to stay your best friend after we're divorced. And just be honest about it. And if she keeps pressing you on it, if she keeps, and she probably won't, but if she does, just tell her the truth. Look, it's not fair for you to ask me for a divorce and then in the same breath ask me to commit to friendship with you after. That's just not fair. I'm not going to say yes to that because I don't know. I'm not saying no. Maybe we will. But I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to make a promise to that either. My plan is that I'm going to see how I feel when I get there. And that should be okay for me to say that. I think that these three things are probably the three pieces of advice that I end up giving most often. And just to recap, the first one is just asking yourself, where is it that your wife is getting this idea? That you want her so much more than she wants you. What is reminding her of that? What is bringing that to the front of her awareness? And is that something that you can change? Is it something that you want to change? Right? That's the other question. Second, just if you find that you're one of those guys who is just, you know that you're waiting on her too much, you're too available to her, okay, then be a little bit more normal about your availability, right? And then finally, don't promise to stay friends with her. Those three pieces of advice, the question of asking yourself, the availability, and the not promising friendship, those are three things that I find myself suggesting a lot. But there are some other tips that you can keep in mind. For example, stop trying to constantly get her to talk to you. So if you still live together, you see your wife every day, maybe there's a time of day that you're always used to talking with your wife. It's something that you guys routinely do. Maybe it's when you get home from work or when she gets home from work or when the kids get home from school or after the kids are in bed. Whatever. If you find yourself constantly pursuing conversation with your wife and constantly getting turned down because she's not interested, that's probably a sign that you are pressing too much to carry on this friendship with your wife, this conversation with your wife. This also means stop bringing up things that you know that she doesn't want to talk about. Stop bringing up the relationship. Stop trying to show off how much that you've changed or trying to get her to recognize your improvements. If you are using your friendship with your wife as just another platform on which you can try to convince her to come back to the marriage, that's a sign that your wife is probably picking up on those ulterior motives. She's probably noticing that. You are not just doing that without any awareness from her that that's what you're doing. All right? With texting, if you're one of those guys that finds yourself still constantly texting your wife, that can be a good thing. That can be fine. But what I will say on that is that look towards quality over quantity. Texting her back and forth, little bits, just meaningless banter all day, that's a reminder to her that you're constantly available. But ultimately, that available doesn't mean much because you're not having any meaningful conversation, right? Longer, more well thought out messages or actual conversations that you're having with her, those are more likely to be meaningful. Again, not every single person listening to this needs to give up their meaningless bantering texts with their wife if you still got them. But again, if you think that you're in that camp of stuck in your wife's friend zone, she knows that you're too available, well, dialing back the texting a bit is one way that you can do that. It doesn't have to be completely. It just means avoid the meaningless stuff, but continue the meaningful stuff, right? Finally, the last thing I'll tell you, and this is just surviving separation 101, but we got to address it here because it certainly comes into play. Remind yourself that you're going to be okay, no matter what. okay? And there's a reason for that. It's not just because I'm not just trying to make you feel better. This will actually help you in your separation too. This will help you with your wife because the more self-assured and confident that you can be in this belief that you're going to be okay no matter what, the more that you can genuinely believe that, the easier it will be to have genuine friendship with your wife, not friend zone friendship with your wife. Again, remember, it all comes back to motives. When you're desperate, when you're trying to change your wife's mind about you through the friendship, that is a motive centered around trying to control something that you can't control. And that is very likely to taint your actions, to make you do things that she is going to pick up on as being manipulative. Being genuine friends with your wife, that is a good thing. Preserving friendship with your wife can open up doors to reconciliation. Go and listen to Get Your Wife Back with Friendship. That's an episode I did a while back. I'll link to it in the show notes for this one. Again, that's husbandhelphaven.com/friendzone during separation, hyphen between each word there. Go back and listen to that. That walks you through how you can try to leverage friendship into increased opportunity to win her back. So I'm not saying get rid of all friendship. I'm just saying be really conscious of your motives. Preserve friendship. Preserve consistent communication. These are good things. These things can lead to reconciliation. But again, the problem comes when your wife knows that you want her so much that every move you make is driven by trying to win her back. And so that also reminds her that she is not that interested in you, in being won back. Okay? So those moments where you find yourself trying to use friendship to win back your wife, that's where you need to stop and check your motives. Be friends with your wife if you're able, at least during the separation. If that's a place where you are, that you can do that with your wife, great. But also be a good friend to yourself. Take care of yourself, all right? And you do that by reminding yourself that you are going to be okay. So, okay. Hopefully that helps you. That kind of sums up the most common advice I find myself giving to men who believe that they're stuck in their wife's friend zone. Again, remember, it comes back to the actual root of the problem here is that your wife is aware that you are more attracted to her than she is to you. So make her question how attracted you are to her, how much more you want her than she wants you. And by doing that, you're probably going to incidentally make her question whether she really doesn't want you, right? So be confident, be self-assured as much as you can. That will help you have genuine friendship that can actually be useful for getting her back, okay? All right, now, as we're wrapping up, I did want to let you know that I have recently released a brand new free resource that is now available on Husband Help Haven. I'm really excited about this. I think it's a very powerful, probably my most powerful free resource to date. It's called From Separated to Reconciled in 7 Steps. It's a completely free guide that's going to walk you through the process that takes you from separated to reconciled. So it's like a bird's eye view of what steps need to happen both for you and for your wife to go from separated to reconciled. Now, it's not specifically about what you do to drive that process forward. It's more about here's the mile markers that you want to hit. Here's the checkpoints you need to reach between where you're at now and where you want to be with your wife. Some of this process is under your control. Some of it is not. Some of it is under your wife's control. But these are the things that need to happen. So, for you veterans to Husband Help Haven, this is going to be a good kind of brush up. If you're new, then you're also going to get a email lesson series after you sign up that's going to walk you through those specific things that you actually can do to drive the process forward. So really, really good stuff here, guys. I've been actually working on this for several months now and just finally got it up and running, up and available for you guys. So you can just go to husbandhelphaven.com. It's right at the top of the homepage there. Sign up. You can get access to From Separated to Reconciled in 7 steps today. And I appreciate that if you do. Anyway, that's what I got for you today. I hope that this helped you. If you find yourself stuck in your wife's friend zone, or if you believe that you're stuck in her friend zone, again, the problem is not the friendship. The problem is the motives and how aware she is of them. So I know it's been a few months since you've gotten a podcast episode from me. I hope you liked this one. I hope it was helpful to you. stay tuned because it's not going to be another few months until you hear from me again. I will have another episode for you next week. So until then, thanks for listening, guys. I hope you're doing well, and I'll wish you the best with much manly love, all the manly love I can muster. See you next time.